Welcome to the channel, Joshua. He's a second time. This is a repeat visit. This is his second time, and a lot of shit has changed since then. Number one, the country, like the view, like where he's living right now, as you can see, like it is not Ireland. He's in. You want to tell him where you're at and what's been going on?
Yeah, we're in Alicante, Spain, Valencia. So came out here like 2 months ago, and with another one of your clients, Warren, and who's also in the Closing Bible. So we have a little bit of a closer house here.
That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. What made you move to Spain?
Do you know what it is? It's the weather. So Ireland is just wet, cold. And when you're closing and you close, you want to have an hour free. It's not exciting to say, I've got an hour free. Let me go outside in the rain. The sun actually like makes I think especially with sales where your energy really, really matters. The sun actually just gives us so much energy. It gives me so much energy.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why I moved to Miami too. I think it's like you make like $1,000 in a day, and you're like, oh, like what do I do? Like stay inside? Like this sucks.
Yeah, no.
Well, cool, dude. Last time we spoke, I think it just started closing for like another offer. And when we first started working together, correct me if I'm wrong, you were doing door to door selling like alarm systems for like 2 or 3 months beforehand. And then you hopped in the Closing Bible, landed a closer role, and did that for quite some time. But that was what, 9 months ago, 6 months ago since we had that conversation?
Probably around, yes, probably I'd say 6 to 9 months ago. Yeah.
Really, dude. Well, I guess number one, what was that made you join the Closing Bible in the first place? And then secondly, from that point on to where you're at now, like what has changed like in a more professional setting, like work-wise?
Yeah, I guess the first reason was, I kind of got into the online space thinking, okay, I'm doing sales. How do I do sales online as well, right? So I started going online and I found out about a high ticket sales, went into Twitter. So loads of guys, not going to name drop anybody, but saw loads of other people in the space as well. Hopped in a few calls with a few of these guys that had other groups, right? And I landed on one of your spaces and I was listening to you just dropping game. And I'm a big guy. I go for a lot of my intuition. That's where it's got me till today. It's very good for me in sales. And I just got a feeling that you were just a genuine person, right? And I think based on the progress over the last 9 months, it was true because I didn't come in with a referral. I didn't know anybody that had worked with you before. I wasn't like, oh, my friend's been with you. Oh, yeah, I know somebody or I've talked to somebody. I just went off the fact that I felt like you were a good person and someone I needed to be working with. So pretty much from there, when I had that call, I felt so confident in what you were doing. I saw the results. You had a few guys at the time, but you had sick results. Like it wasn't blurry where it was kind of like, yeah, we've got like 600 people, but sometimes some people do this, some people do that. It was like everybody was pretty much killing it with you at that time. So that's kind of what brought me there. Then obviously started doing a bit of closing. You went through that first thing the high ticket sales guys go through when you first start. You're kind of getting used to going on interviews, getting on 1 or 2 offers. I feel like you really need to get an understanding of the space in general. That's where you become really, really good. So I was going through that phase, got on a closing offer, was refining my skills. And then through it as well, I came to a real big point where I was like literally could have changed my life. I was thinking, I'm going to go back to, my parents were like, okay, well, you got to go back to university now. Because I'd just been out for a few months and it was coming up to September. And there'd been like an application for a role in the sales opportunity channel. And I clicked into it. I applied for it. I went through 2-3 rounds of interviewing, and this was like 3 weeks out from when I was meant to be going to university, right? Like 3 weeks out. I was in Canada. I was on the way home, and I got the role, and the role was like on target. You can earn like 10 to 15,000, and I was like, this is the one. This is those type of offers that I've been wanting to get, and some of my parents know, listen, I want to do it instead. Didn't go to college, and I smashed it out. So I got in there, got my training, and in my second month there, I closed over 110,000 and made 11K. And that was a big game changer.
That's so fucking cool to me because I remember when we first got on our like sales call or whatever, we were like talking for the first time. You're like, bro, if I can make 10K a month before I go to college, I'm doing it. And I'm like, bro, that's like 4 or 5 months. Like I promise you, if you put your head down, grind, and like take action on everything inside the Closing Bible, the opportunities we have, the training we have, like you'll get it. And you're like, all right, I'm in. And like that's specifically what happened with a few days.
Yeah.
The day happened.
So crazy to see because we literally talked about it and it happened, and that's what I believe at the time as well. I saw everybody else killing it as well because you always see all the other guys. You see the other guys posting in, what they're making, the money they're making, and it really just got me like, okay, cool, I've got to do this. I can do it as well. But I was also not just that, I was prepared for when I did get there. Because in the meantime, I wasn't just like fishing around for sales opportunities and just being a slug. I was going to the sales trainings as well. I was actually getting better at sales. I was going through the program. So I was at a point where like when that opportunity arrived, I was actually ready to perform like that and make 11K, which is a big thing because I think a lot of people get opportunities, but they're not even ready. They focus on the opportunities, but what's the training behind it? Like, are you actually good enough that when it lands, can you make that sort of money?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you closed for a bit for that offer. You cracked the 10K mark, which was obviously the goal. But I think this is a similar experience that everyone has, and maybe you had it too, which is you made that first 11K month, and you're like, okay, cool, but like that's it.
Yeah.
Awesome, most money I've ever made in my life, but it's like, damn, I thought it would like feel like more, but there's just
Yeah.
like numbers just slightly bigger in your bank account. And you're like, oh, I can. It like opens your eyes to what's out there, and you're like, so I just made someone $110,000 in 30 days. Like,
Mhm.
well, like how much could I make then? Which is that what kind of led you to starting your own business after you closed for a bit?
Exactly. Spot on. That exact feeling. I still remember it when it came and like, it was like this feeling where it's static, obviously, because that's so much of a crux put onto that number. But then I kind of felt like, okay, and I'm one that's always like, okay, what's next? So, even coming from the door-to-door sales, I hit a good number, doing well, but it's like, okay, what's next? Same. So I got to that number and I was like, okay, how do I go to the next stage? And I was like, I want to go higher. I know sales, I have the skills now. I've got the proof of concept that this all works and everything. So let me go ahead. And I've started to understand the works of how online sales and these courses and these businesses work. That's one thing as well. You got to learn how these companies and everything work as well, and get to really see the back end stuff as well. I remember there was a training that we did on that as well about like kind of the bottlenecks of companies and why they actually need to hire people. And from there, then I was like, okay, cool. So I met up with a few people. We started things going, and I remember we closed like a 10K deal. Now instead, that's not commission. That is, oh, you're only on 10%. That's for our company, and we collected like in the revenue like around 20, 25K in revenue, and that's where it was like, okay, cool. Now I know that I can actually do the sales stuff, but it's not just that I've been learned how to do high ticket sales and close and get percentages. I've learned how to do sales, but if I ever want to put this into our own business, I can also collect 20, 30, 40, 50K for myself.
Yeah, I had this one tweet that a lot of people liked, and I said a sales job is more of a business degree than a business degree, and it
Yes.
resonated with a lot of people because if you view like a business as almost like an engine, you're like one of those gears, one of those pistons in the engine when you're in a sales job. But
Mm.
once you start making the business money, you're like, oh, okay, so the marketing gets this lead here, and they watch this video, and this video is so perfectly crafted,
Yeah.
it warms up the lead, it qualifies the lead, then they pay. What happens after they pay? Oh, then they get on this call, and they get this, and they get this, and they get this. And then after it ends, then they have this upsell. So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
holy shit, you can like zoom out and you're like, this is how the engine works. And then after you've been inside the engine and you know how every piece and everything functions, you know how to build your own engine, build your own business. And that's exactly what happened with you, which is very dope.
And that's why I love the industry, because as you said, you get to see what it looks like to run these businesses, because you're on the inside and you got to see everything, and you can take everything you learn there and apply it to yourself. And the even bigger thing for me about high ticket sales and being good at it is when you're good enough as well, it's always there, because everyone's big fear is when you're building a business, right? How do you build a business? And you're like, cash flow could be a problem. Cash flow is a problem, because when you first get clients, you're going to reinvest in your business. You may take 20K in, but you may reinvest so much of that. You want to be able to make money, and that's how people don't make money, and then they have to go back to work and go get a corporate job. With the high ticket sales and the way I've got to a standard now is like, I can still just pick it up at any point and say, hey, I've got like 4 hours free on the evenings. Why don't I just do some sales closing and bring in like a couple of grand every single month? Or like, why don't I just do a bit of appointment setting or something like that, and make a few phone calls, set a few appointments, and maybe make 4,000 or 5,000 just on the side as a little side thing. And that's the most beautiful part for me.
Yeah, I think there's so much freedom in just knowing, like, drop me anywhere in the world. Like, as long as I speak English and have a couple hours free, like I can make 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 grand. Like you could like strip every possession from me, every dollar from me. And like, of course it'd be stressful as hell, but I'm like, I don't get a sales job, I'll make like 200 grand. Like I'm fine.
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah.
what happens, I can take risks because I know I'm good.
as long as that's how I feel comfortable, because I've been here, I'm in the community. I know at any point I can make risks, do whatever I want, because I always know, hey, listen, when I'm doing my sales stuff, if I ever want something on the side and do a work, go to sales opportunity Slack, boom, a couple of offers there, boom, I'm in because I've been really, really good at sales. And there's 3-4K in the bank every single month, or 5-6K in the bank, whatever it is. But it's a really, really big feeling, because that's not just something short term, that's something for life. That's something that set me up for the future, and I can go ahead and like live and do what I want because I know I have that always there. So that is the backup plan that happens when you drop out of college, which is meant to be the backup plan. Well, high ticket sales and doing that and doing it full time is always going to be there for me at any point.
Yeah, that's what I did after I dropped out of chiropractic school. So 20s is your time to just take crazy risks, because it's like, what's gonna happen? Like, you're gonna, maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
work. It's literally
Yeah.
impossible if you just put your head down and grind. And then what? You're in the same position you were 6 months ago. Like, cool. Like, because are you even 20? Like, how old are you?
I'm 20, going 21 in October this year. So 10 months, in like 7 months time, going 21. So it's the same thing I say to my friends. I think that the biggest part of it is when you're doing something and you're with someone that you fully trust and you know works, you can go to your friends, right? So I'm out here with one of my best friends, like my girlfriend's brother, who at the time as well, I told him as well about yourself, got him into it as well. I don't know if you guys have watched his video, Warren Mulvey. And I remember telling him about it, and I was telling him about the industry, how he could do it, and he was seeing me do it. I remember the same month when I was doing it, we'd gone to Portugal, and he saw me make 11K that month. I literally remember this, only a few months ago, like 4 months ago. And I told him, bro, you're gonna get this in a few months' time very easily. Fast forward 2 months later, he had his first 15K month. So that's the craziest thing for me, is being able to do something like this, but also bring in a friend, people I know as well, and be able to make them money, and being able to, like, at any time any friend comes to me and says, oh, I need to do something, I know where to go.
And that's the unique thing about the Closing Bible, is it's like, we're not like fucking 800 people that market, like in the community. We market so hard that like maybe a guy or two gets a testimonial, and then we do these interviews. It's like, bro, everyone in there is crushing. And that's why we get so many referrals. Like, a majority of our clients come from referrals, because they're just like, fucking $11,000 in a month, 90 days in. Like, I need my friends to like be making racks. I'm not going to travel by myself.
Yeah.
But I guess when you got into sales and stuff, and you were kind of hitting like your first, 10K month, 11K month, and you're kind of like progressing, what were some of the biggest things you learned that took you from like 5-ish K a month to like 11K? Like, what was the biggest differences there? Because that's obviously a big difference.
I think one of the biggest things, right, was definitely dialing in on my follow-up game, right? Every sales guy comes in and thinks it's all just about what's on the call. But I remember there was one of the trainings we had done some time, and you went through how you actually do your follow-ups, like how much time you spent. And I thought follow-ups was only for people that were struggling to make money as a sales rep. I didn't think that like the guys that are crushing it. But then I started to realize that actually 40-50% of what you actually make comes from what you can do, how you can sell to people after the phone call is actually over. Right. And that changed the dynamic, because I remember that month I made like 11K. I'd say at least 5 of that came from an ongoing following up with people and getting people into the door. So that was a big realization I made, because I before that I would have just been thinking about the next call, the next call, the next call as well. Another thing I think that really helped me as well is understanding frame. So understanding that it's a constant frame battle when you're coming in, and you can't sound like just like a customer service rep. And I know you always talk about this frame, and they're here and they're here, and you have to always be in your head and understand who has leverage in the conversation at every point of time. And you always want to be the one that has leverage as most as often. I think when I really just didn't just hear it, but actually started putting into my calls, people respected me more, and I was able to challenge people way more and collect more cash. And that's something that I still preach, and I'm literally all about that every single day.
Yeah, the person who needs a sale the least gets it. And I think when you're first starting, you're so hungry to make money. You're like, I'll say anything, I'll do anything I can to get this person. I'll like do all these things. If they want to think about it for 2 weeks, I'll let them. And like, that's the very thing that like makes you not be able to close. And once you make that mental shift, like, I don't need this client, they're like, you don't sound like most salespeople. Like, whoa, like this is different than what I'm used to. And then they get intrigued, and that's what makes them make buying decisions, which is very freaking cool.
Yeah, and that's where pipeline comes into, because when you're good at follow-ups and pipeline, when you have pipeline, you don't feel like you need that call because that's not your only chance of making, let's say, $600 in commission, because you've had someone that just replied to you that actually, yeah, we're good to go tomorrow or next week, and that's $600 commission that you know is in your pipeline. So you can hop into a call and you're a lot more relaxed. But when you're not good at your pipeline, you're following up and those sort of stuff, I think sometimes a lot of times you can learn the actual sales call stuff, but you do need guidance to understand, how do I manage my pipeline? How do I manage my follow-up as well? And I think that's one of the biggest skills that I probably got that I think is more valuable. It's not the sexiest thing to say for most people. They expect me to say, oh, the best thing I learned was something else. But I think the biggest value I took from yourself was your follow-up, because I think it was the follow-up that actually got me in as well, really good. You know, and your follow-up really worked well on me. So if your follow-up can work well on me, it can work well on everybody else too.
Yeah. I think a lot of sales guys' egos say like, oh, bro, I can one call close everyone. And like, sure, like the goal is 1,000% to get as many people to pay on that very first call. Like that is 1,000% the goal, but you're not going to get 100% of people to just do that, unfortunately. So like when you have the ability to just in 15 seconds shoot like a little 10-word text that is a $6,000 deal closed, they're like, all right, bro, I don't fucking need you. And like if that's your mentality on sales calls, like it's just so opposite of other salespeople. It messes with human psychology. And as a whole, like if we go back to, like, I could go deep here, like with Indian like tribes, right? Like we are very tribal human beings, like primitively. Like we traveled in packs of 10 to 15, 20 people. So if you got kicked out of the tribe, you're gonna die because you don't have people hunting for you. You don't have people like shelter, like water, like that's not there. And you're going to die if you're trying to do everything by yourself. So we have a very primitive fear of not being a part of the club or getting kicked out of the tribe. So when you tell people, hey, I know you want this, but you can't get it, they're like, they're fighting to get it, even though getting it is literally paying you money.
Completely agree on that point there, because a lot of times, you said, as being a beginner, you spend a lot of times chasing people and kind of begging people to kind of come in and close as well. But the real genius is being able to understand that if you can switch the psychology and make people want you and actually reject people more, that's the actual that you make sales. And it's kind of goes opposite to it, because all the cliche kind of sales things that you hear is all about like how you use tactics to get people and how you make people. But a lot of the times it's as simple as just not showing as much interest in them too.
Yeah, believe it or not, actually helping people and like doing the right thing is like what makes the most money, and it feels the best too. So, dude, you made like $25,000 in a month at like 19, 20 years old, coming on 21 now. Like, what's the vision? Like, what's the goal for like 2023? We're like 3 months into it. Like, what are you kind of looking to do here?
Yeah, so I'm taking my skills from, high ticket sales and being able to do that and going out and trying to see if I can kind of help other guys as well that have these sort of offers, because I've seen the operations and I know how to close. I feel like I have the ability to do that. So me and Warren are partnering on that as well. Got a couple of other projects I'm working on. I think the real goal, so we can put a number wise in case there was ever a third podcast interview or something like that, is like by like November, December, definitely at around that like 30, 40K a month mark is definitely what we're aiming for 2023. So, I mean, it's crazy because a year ago in October, I was like maybe 3K. So that's like in the space of a year, 10xing my income monthly.
Yeah, dude, 40 that's too small. You should go for like 60, 70 by December, but that's like 9 months. That's a lot of time.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, 60, 70. We'll put down 60, 70 for those then. We'll update it there. So 60, 70. I was being a little bit conservative, guys, but I think we're aiming big this year. So we started the year big as well. So building the start of the year, and I think the second half of the year is really crushing it and reaching those bigger numbers too.
That's fire. That's fire. Yeah, dude, you got to shoot high. And it's easy for me to shoot high. I'm literally looking at like the whole skyline of Vegas and all the mountains. So I'm
I still got Alicante City behind me. I've got a sea and a beautiful beach as well. So I think I should.
Well, cool, dude. I think this interview was like killer. I guess just for like, most of the people on my YouTube here, which is where this is going to be posted, like they're currently in sales, they're business owners looking to improve their sales process. Maybe they're aspiring salespeople. Like what would you say to that, maybe Joshua, 18, 19 years old, who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and wanting to make money? Like, what would you say to him?
I would say just commit to becoming the best version of the sales guy you can be, right? Because if you're not good enough and you're still doing nothing about it, you're always going to be not good enough, right? So whatever's the best option, you can either, sit in the shadows and kind of pray and see if you're going to get better on your own or if things can kind of go your way. But I think the best way of things is putting yourself in an environment where you can become a killer salesperson, because it's not just what's worth in those 4, 5, 6 months, that's worth to you for 10, 15, 20 years. Because when you learn sales once, you don't forget it. It's not like learning a book and you forget how to do it. You learn it properly for 6 months, 3 months, you will always be able to sell. You'll be 30 selling $1 million companies or something because you learned how to sell when you were 19, 20, 22, 23. So that's what I would have said to myself back there, is just taking a bet on yourself a lot earlier and become an expert and stop trying to just go in the shadows for so long.
Yeah, I think expanding your time horizon, especially at a young age, like expanding the time horizon you think on is like game changer.
Yeah.
But phenomenal, bro. Thanks again for hopping on. Like we've made crazy strides since we first met, and it's so dope to see your growth. And you're like, bro, I'm only 2 years older than you, 3 years older than you. Like you're fucking young, bro. Like I wish I knew all this stuff when I was like I was just kind of getting started, but I just didn't move with the speed that you did, and it's really dope to see, and it's very cool to be a part of it. Thanks again for hopping on the channel. When we hit 70K a month by December, we'll have a part 3.
We'll do it in Miami. We'll be sitting down with cameras and we'll sit beside each other and do it in Miami itself. It wouldn't be over Zoom anymore.
Say less. We'll do an in-person one.
For sure, 100%. Thanks very much, Gareth, as well, for having me on too.
Yes, sir. Thanks for hopping on, man.